The gym was full of noise. Kids and grown-ups talked. Feet thudded on the mats. Families sat on folding chairs. Some kids stretched, others jumped and practiced their moves. Coaches gave loud advice. Judges looked at scorecards. It was the Eastern Regional Karate Tournament. It looked like a normal Saturday in North Carolina. No one noticed when the quiet man came in late. Cale walked slowly but stood tall. He kept his shoulders back. His shirt was tucked neatly into his white pants. Still, he had no belt, no patches, no school name. At the sign-up table, he gave a piece of paper and his driver's license to a helper. The helper looked at it, then said nothing. Just nodded. Name, Cale Ardent. Division, Adult Men's Advanced. The helper pointed to the warm-up area. But Cale didn't go join the others. Instead, he sat on a bench far from the crowd. His hands were folded. His back was straight. His eyes watched everything, not nervous, not scared, just calm and focused, like a soldier standing guard. Up in the stands, a man in his 50s was sitting with his friend, drinking coffee. When he saw Cale, he leaned forward and squinted. I know that face, he thought. I know that posture. 1 year ago, this man had taken his family to Washington, D.C. There, they visited Arlington National Cemetery. He remembered watching a soldier guard the tomb of the unknown soldier. That soldier didn't move. Not even when it rained. His steps were perfect. His eyes stayed straight. Every move looked like part of a dance. That soldier was Cale Ardent. The man in the stands wasn't 100% sure until he saw Cale's eyes again. They were focused, still, and alert. Not like a fighter. Like a guard. A protector. Meanwhile, the tournament went on. Names were called. Matches were fought. Some kids did great. Others got scared. Some families cheered. Others clapped or sighed. Cale didn't move. He didn't stretch. He didn't punch the air or jog in place. He just watched. To most people, he looked like someone who forgot his belt. Or maybe he wasn't very good. Some teens pointed and giggled. Look at that guy with no belt, they whispered. But Cale didn't care. He sat like someone who had once stood in the rain for hours, guarding something special, not for a prize, but because it was his duty. The first time he stood up, no one really noticed. Then a judge called out, next match, men's advanced. Cale Ardent versus Javier Rojas. The judge repeated it louder. Cale got up, bowed just a little, and walked to the mat. Now people looked. They saw his black shirt, white pants, and no belt. Some chuckled. One boy whispered, "This guy's a joke." But the man in the stands didn't laugh. He leaned over and said to his friend, "That's no joke. That man is a tomb guard. They don't go anywhere by mistake. If he's here, it matters." Javier Rojas was no beginner. He was in his 30s, fast and strong. He had made it to the finals 2 years in a row. He bounced on his toes, ready to fight. He saw Cale's waist and smirked. No belt. No team logo. No warm-up. Easy win, he probably thought. The judge said, "Begin." Javier stepped forward fast, kicking to test Cale. But Cale didn't move. The kick missed. Javier tried again, punching lightly, trying to get Cale to react. Still, Cale didn't move. Then with just one small pivot, Cale moved his shoulder and let Javier's punch pass by, not even touching him. No punch. No kick. No reaction. People started to watch more closely. Javier stepped in harder this time. Jab, jab, hook, front kick. Cale moved again, just once. A soft step back. Then a turn to the side. Every attack missed by just a little. Finally, Javier tried too hard. He stepped big and lost his balance. Cale moved to the side, and Javier fell out of bounds. Point goes to Cale. Match over. Cale bowed, walked back to his bench, and sat down. He had never even thrown a punch. Now people whispered more. Was that luck? Is he stalling? Who is this guy? But some knew better. The judges, some coaches, and a few older fighters understood. Cale didn't move like a beginner. He moved like someone who had trained for years. His balance. His timing. His awareness. He moved like a soldier. Later that day, they announced the next match. Kale Ardent versus Ryo Matsuda. The mood in the gym changed. Everyone knew Matsuda. He was the champion. 3-time winner. A fighter from Japan. Fast. Strong. Dangerous. He wore a red belt with black stripes. His karate outfit had a special symbol from a famous dojo in Tokyo. When he stepped on the mat, he bowed sharply. His eyes were serious. Someone in the crowd whispered, "That guy is going to destroy the new guy." As the names were called, Ryo looked at Kale, then at the judges, then back at Kale. He saw the black shirt, the army haircut. Ryo walked up and asked in his Japanese accent, "Your tomb guard?" "Yes." He pointed at Kale's shirt. "I know you. You stand. You watch. You do not fight." Kale didn't answer. He just bowed a little. Ryo smirked. "I respect soldiers. But standing still is not the same as moving forward." Now the match was ready to begin. Matsuda bounced slightly. Kale stood still. The judge raised his hand. "Begin." Matsuda moved like lightning. He dashed in with fast kicks and punches. Kale didn't block. He didn't hit back. He just stepped, turned, and shifted his weight. Every attack missed. Matsuda's face got tighter. He threw harder and faster. Still, Kale just moved at the right time. A turn. A small step. A slight lean. No wasted moves. No fear. The crowd was silent now. All eyes were on them. Then, at the perfect moment, Kale stepped forward. Not fast. Not flashy. Just one step. And it stopped Matsuda cold. Kale didn't hit him. But the look in his eyes froze the champion in place. It wasn't anger. It was for a purpose. Matsuda blinked, unsure. Kale stepped back again. Matsuda attacked, but lost his balance. Kale didn't take advantage. He just stepped aside. Time ran out. The match ended in a draw. Gasps filled the gym. The undefeated champion hadn't won. And the man with no belt hadn't lost. Afterward, kids whispered and pointed. Who is he? Where did he come from? Why didn't he fight back? But the older ones, the judges, the coaches, the real fighters, knew. Kale Ardent wasn't there to win. He was there for something else. A promise. A memory. A mission. And sometimes, the quietest person in the room is the one with the most power. And that is the story of a man who didn't fight to prove he was strong. He stood calm, still, and ready, like a true protector. He didn't need a belt. He didn't need loud cheers. Because sometimes, the strongest people don't need to show off. They just need to show up. And Kale Ardent did. Just like he always had. He turned around and slowly ran to the middle of the mat. The judge called both fighters to get ready. They stood facing each other and bowed. That's how every match begins, with a bow. In the crowd, someone laughed and said, "This won't take long." A teenager sitting nearby whispered, "That guard guy just got lucky last time." They didn't believe Kale could really win. But a few people in the crowd had different looks on their faces. They weren't laughing. One man leaned forward in his seat. He had seen Kale before, at Arlington. He had also seen Ryo fight before. He knew how fast and strong Ryo was. But this moment felt different. It was quiet. Calm. Like something big was about to happen. Kale stepped onto the mat. His face didn't change. His arms didn't move. He just stood still. It didn't look like he was ready, but somehow he was. He wasn't showing off. He wasn't acting tough. He was just there. Like a still lake before a storm. The judge lifted his hand, then dropped it. The match had started. Ryo didn't wait. He rushed forward fast. He moved like someone who had practiced this 1,000 times. He started with a front kick, high and quick. Then a punch with the back of his fist. Then a big spinning kick. Each move was fast and strong. They were perfect. But Kale wasn't there. The kick hit only air. The punch missed. The spinning kick came around, but Kale had already moved. Just one small step to the right. That's all. He didn't block the attack. He didn't jump back. He just wasn't in the way. Like a leaf in the wind. Rio landed and reset his stance. He frowned. That wasn't normal. Kale had dodged everything, not with a fight, but by simply moving at the perfect time. He didn't waste any energy. He looked so calm, like he already knew what Rio was going to do. Rio came at him again, this time changing his speed and rhythm. He threw a low kick and then a fast punch to Kale's chest. Kale didn't block. He didn't hit back. He just turned his body a little, stepped to the side, and again, Rio missed. The only sound was the loud swish of Rio's uniform slicing through the air. The crowd, which had been talking a lot before, was now quiet. Very quiet. The judge looked at the scoreboard. No points. No hits. Nothing yet. And still, Kale hadn't attacked at all. 3 times Rio had tried. 3 times Kale had just moved. Rio's confident smile was gone now. He opened his stance wider. He pretended to aim high, then dropped low and swept his leg at Kale, trying to knock him down. But Kale didn't jump. He didn't stop. He just calmly stepped over the sweeping leg, like he was stepping over a puddle. Then he turned back to his starting position. He stood still again. His hands were low. His eyes looked quiet, like he was listening to a song no one else could hear. In the crowd, one older man crossed his arms and leaned forward. He said softly, "That's not just dodging. That's control. That's discipline." Rio started to get angry. He began to hit harder, faster, not just to win now, but to prove something. But every time he attacked, Kale moved just a little. Never too much. Never too little. He didn't fight back. He didn't show off. He just moved. Some people in the crowd thought Kale was doing nothing. But the people who truly understood martial arts, they were amazed. They saw something special. Kale was doing the hardest thing of all. He was showing total control, without needing to be loud or aggressive. Every fighter has a rhythm, a pattern. But Kale didn't follow Rio's rhythm. He messed it up. He made Rio unsure. Rio started to circle Kale, trying to find a way in. He said something in Japanese, frustrated. He wasn't used to fighting someone like this, someone who felt like a ghost. Always there, but never getting hit. Then came the 5th try. Rio threw a fake punch with his left hand. Then, he twisted his body into a flying sidekick. He used all his power, all his training. That kick should have landed. It should have hit Kale. But it didn't. Kale moved just a tiny bit. He dipped his body and stepped aside. The kick missed him by a breath. Rio landed hard, and for the first time, he stumbled. Then Kale did something new. He walked forward. 1 step. Then another. Then he stopped. He didn't hit Rio. He didn't raise his hands. He just stood there, 5 feet away, quiet, calm. His head was slightly bowed. And everyone understood the message. You've tried everything. I haven't even needed to respond. Not yet. People in the stands leaned forward. Phones stopped recording. Even the judges started whispering. A small boy tugged his dad's sleeve and asked, "Is he winning?" The dad didn't answer. He didn't know what to say. Because there were no points. No hits. By the rules, nothing had happened. But everyone felt it. Kale was in control. Rio was breathing harder now. Sweat was on his forehead. His steps were faster, but his attacks weren't as clean anymore. He wasn't sure of himself. He looked at the judges. Then at Kale. And in that moment, Rio saw something that scared him. Kale wasn't trying to win. He was waiting. For what? No one knew. But when it happened, no one would forget it. Rio was sweating more now. His breath was faster. He was no longer moving like a champion. He was moving like someone trying to figure out what was happening. He just wanted to land a hit. Any hit. Something. Anything. But Kale still hadn't thrown one strike. Every time Rio attacked, Kale moved gently. Leaning, turning, stepping. Always just enough. Always perfect. It felt like Kale had already seen the whole match in his mind before it started. Like he was just following the plan. A quiet, perfect plan. To some people, it looked like nothing was happening. But to those who had trained for years, this was the highest level of martial arts. Control without hurting. Power without showing off. Strength held back. Rio shouted and rushed forward again. This time with a spinning elbow, an attack meant to knock Kale off balance. But Kale stepped inside the motion. Their shoulders brushed. And then Kale did something new. He lifted one hand. Not to hit. Just to tap Rio lightly on the side. A soft touch. Not enough to hurt. But enough to send a message. You were open. I saw it. But I let it go. Rio jumped back. He looked like he'd touched fire. It wasn't the tap that scared him. It was what the tap meant. Kale hadn't needed to hit him. But he could have. That little touch said everything. The match was never close. Kale had been in control the whole time. Rio looked into Kale's eyes. They weren't angry. They weren't cold. They were just clear. Calm. Focused. You're mocking me, Rio said under his breath. His fists were tight now. But Kale didn't answer. He didn't move. He just looked. Rio growled and dropped lower. He decided to try a takedown. He would use his judo. He'd grab Kale and throw him to the ground. Maybe then, he could turn the fight around. He pushed forward fast, driving at Kale's hips. But it was a mistake. The worst move he could make. Kale didn't stop him. He stepped forward into the attack. He turned his body just slightly. He used Rio's own strength against him. It wasn't a throw. It wasn't a big move. It was something deeper. Something smaller. Like a whisper in the middle of a shout. It was called redirection. Rio's legs tangled. His body twisted the wrong way. And before he could fix it, he was falling. Fast. He hit the mat face first with a loud thud. The crowd gasped. The sound echoed across the room. And still, Kale stood quiet. Still. Calm. The room got very, very quiet. Everyone gasped. No one moved. No one said a word. It was so quiet you could almost hear people's hearts beating. Rio was lying on the mat. He wasn't hurt, but he was surprised. He didn't understand what had just happened. He took a deep breath. His arms pushed on the mat, and his chest went up and down as he tried to calm down. Slowly, he sat up and looked around the room like he was trying to remember what had just taken place. The judge stood still, not sure what to do. Then, after a moment, the judge raised his hand and showed that the match was over. Kale was still standing in the same place. He wasn't breathing hard. He wasn't sweating. He didn't yell. He didn't cheer. He didn't jump up and down. He just stood still, calm and quiet, like nothing big had happened. Rio looked up at Kale, still breathing hard. How? He asked. He didn't sound angry. He sounded like he was full of wonder. Maybe he even felt something like respect. Maybe even something like love. Kale didn't say anything. He just reached out his hand to help Rio up. Rio stared at the hand for a moment. Then he reached up and grabbed it. The people watching didn't clap. They didn't shout. They didn't cheer. They just watched. The moment felt very special, and everyone knew it was better to stay quiet. And then something amazing happened. Rio bowed. He had never bowed like that before. It wasn't just to be polite. It was because he truly respected Kale. He knew he had lost, but not because he was weak or slow. He lost because Kale was something else, something deeper. Kale was strong, but he didn't show off. He was a master, but he didn't act like he was better than anyone else. He fought without being loud. He won without bragging. Kale and Rio walked off the mat together, side by side. Only then did the people in the room begin to move again. They started to talk, but they spoke softly, like when you come out of a really good movie. They knew they had seen something special, something rare. Kale walked back to his bench. He sat down just like before. He folded his hands in his lap and waited quietly. A man came over. He had a clipboard in his hand. He looked surprised and a little nervous. "That was not what we expected," he said. "You can go to the finals now. You might even win the whole tournament. We'd like to take your picture and maybe do a little interview." Kale shook his head. "Just once. I didn't come for that, he said. The man blinked, confused. Then why did you come? Cale looked out across the gym. He looked past the flags hanging on the wall, past the rows of chairs, past everything. Then finally he said, to keep a promise. He didn't say anything else. After the final match ended and all the trophies were handed out, most of the people left. They walked out to their cars, chatting and smiling. But Cale Ardent stayed. He sat quietly near the edge of the mat, still and calm. The same man with the clipboard came back. He had a small gold trophy in one hand and a shiny medal in the other. You didn't come to the ceremony, he said gently. You won. The judges said you were the best. The other man, Matsuda, decided not to fight. He said he had nothing left to prove after watching your match. Cale looked at the man with calm eyes. I don't need a trophy, he said softly. The man stood there for a moment, then set the medal and trophy down on the bench next to Cale. At least let us take your picture, the man said. It's a tradition. Cale's voice was quiet. I didn't come here for tradition. The man paused, then asked the question no one else had asked. Why did you fight? Cale didn't speak right away. His fingers moved a little, like he was holding something that wasn't really there. Maybe a rifle. Maybe a flag, all folded up. Then he finally spoke. There was a boy I served with, Cale said. He was young, smart, brave, but he was also kind and full of respect. He wanted to be a martial artist after the army. He used to talk about starting a little dojo back home in Utah. He even taught me some moves when we were in the desert, waiting for the next mission. Cale stopped talking for a moment. He didn't make it home, he said softly. The man with the clipboard lowered his head. I'm sorry, he said. Cale nodded once. Before I left the army, I promised him I'd do one match. Just one. Not to win. Not to fight. Just to honor what he believed in. What did he believe in? The man asked quietly. That strength doesn't always mean being loud or rough, Cale said. That being quiet doesn't mean you're weak. That being underestimated is sometimes the best thing. Because no one sees you coming. The man stood there a little longer, then quietly walked away. Not far from the mat, near the bleachers, a man named Logan Thorne was watching. He had seen everything. He had recognized Cale earlier that day. He remembered him from Arlington Cemetery. Logan had been a soldier too. He had been through battles, lost good friends, and seen hard things. But what he saw today stayed with him. Not because of the fight, but because of how Cale won. With grace, with quiet, with calm. No shouting. No ego. Just presence. Just purpose. That night, Logan went home and wrote about it. He wrote what he saw and how it made him feel. He sent his words to some veterans groups and a few small news sites. It didn't go viral. No big headlines. No millions of likes. Just a quiet story, shared by people who understood. A few weeks later, something beautiful happened in Utah. At a small dojo, where the young soldier had once trained, they held a little memorial seminar in his name. No signs, no commercials, just people who cared. On the side of the mat, there was a folded American flag. No one knew exactly who had sent the special belt that arrived that day. It had two names on it, one on each end. But people said a quiet man came in, stood at the back of the room with his hands behind his back, and just watched. He didn't talk. He didn't interrupt. He just stood there. When the seminar ended, he walked toward the door. He stopped just once, turned around, and looked at the mat. Then he left. He didn't leave behind a medal. He didn't leave behind a name. Only silence. But those who were there, they knew. Because not every warrior needs to fight on a battlefield. Some warriors fight in other ways. And some, like Cale Ardent, never stop watching over the people they promised to protect. Even after the mission is done. Did you enjoy the story? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Share them in the comments below. If you had a great time, don't forget to hit subscribe and ring the bell so you're always in the loop for the next adventure. Thanks for joining me, and as always, stay curious, stay brave, and keep exploring.